In this episode, you hear about how a life-changing moment inspired this entrepreneur to start an impact tech company with a mission to inspire millions of people to do small things that together make a huge impact.
From Blue Tribe Media, this is the Good Business Podcast, the show where we talk to business leaders, social entrepreneurs, and innovators about aligning profit with purpose and how you can make doing good for business. Now here's your host, James McGregor.
In today's episode, I'm talking with Johannah Maher, who is the CEO and co-founder of Impactr, an impact tech startup company with a mission to inspire millions of people to do small things that together make a big impact. Prior to becoming an impact entrepreneur, Johannah was an executive at the world's largest energy company and specialised in high-tech product development and value engineering. Johannah is a recognised industry expert in renewable energy and a fierce advocate for equality and social change. In this episode, you'll hear about a life-changing moment that caused Johannah to pivot from a future in aerospace engineering and wind energy technology to become an impact entrepreneur in the digital technology space. Let's check it out. So why don't we kick off and start, and why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are?
Yes. Hi, James. Well, to describe who I am, I think I'll start with perhaps what I stand for. So yeah, citizen of planet Earth. And in that light, at the moment, we really have to stand up for people and planet, and that's climate and equality. And these two are very interlinked, which I'll come back for. But in terms of my stance, I'm an optimist and an engineer. So I know what's possible, and my motto at the moment is carbon zero by next Wednesday.
Yeah, I love that one. That's great.
I actually borrowed that from a conference I went to called One Young World, but we can touch on that later. But yeah, I mean, underlying that, our biggest problem is equality, and climate change is actually a symptom of these social injustices and inequalities that we have, and research shows this. So in that light, I'm a huge crusader for equality, justice, representation. Mm-hmm. But I also believe in the power of tiny, insignificant actions, which may seem small, but when done together and many people do them, they can affect and create pretty drastic change. Yeah, so personally, as I said, optimistic, and I believe, and not just in an idealistic way, we do have everything we need to fix our problems. Many of our problems are man-made. They can be unmade. We just have to be a little faster about it before we get over some of those tipping points. Yeah, but technologist as well. I've always had a natural relationship with technology and innovation. I sort of started mixing concepts all the way back to when I was doing Lego, getting the pirate ship Lego, getting the castles, getting the space stations, mixing it all up and coming up with my own creations. And I kind of have carried that through all of my career. Yeah, and sort of challenging the status quo. That's a little bit the crusade, always trying to innovate and push things forward, never taking no for an answer. That's always things are possible. That's sort of my attitude. And I guess what I'm working on now and things that really matter to me is empowerment of youth. We've got more young people on the planet than ever before. So we're at peak youth. Yeah. This is the most progressive, transformative, creative, fluid generation with so much potential to move us forward and get us beyond, get us on track with some of these negative trajectories that we have. So yeah, empowering a youth-led movement is what I'm working on. But young is also a state of mind as well. I'm not necessarily in the young category now, but you can be young even when you're 60. To be young is to be open to ideas and to, let creativity and innovation lead the way. So yeah, I guess I described a bit about my characteristics, my mindset, to tell you a bit about who I am.
Yeah, great. Yeah. And I agree with that. Yeah, that youth aspect. I think so we do a lot of work with sort of incubators and accelerators for the universities. So university students trying to come up with new social impact ideas. and they're so open to trying new things, so they don't have that. They haven't learned bad habits. Is what I'm trying to say. They haven't got these false constraints that, as you get, that wisdom often brings with it. Sometimes that you think, oh, okay, well, I can't do that because I've never done that before, or that's not how you do things. But the world's changed.
Exactly, the pre-existing notions not necessarily valued or given with the youth. So that provides a lot of space for creativity and not holding back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So tell us something about yourself that most people may not know about you, even friends.
Yeah, I guess I can come across with a pretty harsh exterior. I'm very, very driven and very assertive. And I guess in effect, over the years of my career, I became sort of a businessman, But in spite of all that, I actually, it is an exterior. Like, I'm very human at the end of the day. I do stew in emotions long into the night and reflect. And so, I probably come off quick and cutthroat in some ways with some of my actions, but underneath it, I am very, deeply reflective on these things and a bit of a softie underneath to speak. So,
yeah, great.
Hopefully there's some equilibrium there that not everybody sees.
Yeah, but I think sometimes when you're trying to solve big problems in the world, you just want to cut to the chase and get on with things.
Yeah.
I have that bad habit. I've often referred to sometimes when we're doing projects as being a bit blunt, but I just want to get things going. The problems are too big to sit around and not make decisions. So,
right. Yep.
Yeah. So what would you describe as your superpower then?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I guess it does speak a bit to that, getting things done. Getting past it, not letting failure or mistakes or just keep moving on and not being constrained. And I think coming back to that optimism as well, like foresight, maybe a bit of Cyclops vision.
Yeah.
If we were to go superpower, having the foresight, knowing it's possible and just getting on with it to try to get there.
Yeah. So when I like that, I obviously stalked you on LinkedIn and different platforms to do a bit of background.
Yeah.
So one of the things I think that came through looking at your, some of the stuff you worked on in the past is this challenging rules. Right? Why can't we do something different?
Yep.
Why? So reading what I saw there, I say that's a superpower in itself, like challenging the existing way of doing business and the existing way of solving problems to say why can't we look at a different way of approaching things, which is a really important skill, I think.
That's a great pickup. I fully agree. Yeah, I think I said I don't always take no for at least the first answer. I can ask why 5 times and then still get a no, but then I'll try to find a way to work around that 5th no anyway.
Yeah. And with the scale of those things, when we talking sustainability and environmental social impact, the challenges are so big. I think we need that. I often describe sustainability. We work with a lot of sustainability professionals as like the Rottweilers of the sustainability world. They're always nipping at people's heels, trying to get them to do things, and you have to have that, I think, to keep things moving.
Yeah.
So it's a good superpower to have, I think.
Yeah, but also not having it's too big attitude, or perception of these, especially around sustainability. There's these words used the problems are so complex, the problems are so big, it's really difficult, it's going to be a long transition. Those notions, they get in our way and they become constraining. So that's where you come into why is it so complex? And you mentioned nipping at the heels. I think getting down to the small details and the small actions, and just moving those needles, that can affect the larger change rather than coming at it from, okay, we need to map this huge complex problem. That can it can cause a bit of paralysis in our action.
Yes, there's definitely power in small actions, small steps, and they all add up eventually.
Indeed.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Impactr. So, what is it? What does it do? How does it work? How does someone get involved?
Yeah, that was actually a perfect segue because it is about small actions. So I guess Impactr's ultimate vision is to shift the world's spending to the most trusted, sustainable, social, environmental impact opportunities and outcomes, with a focus on those small collective actions and bringing a bit of joy in those actions as well. We need to spark a bit of joy and have an optimistic, a positive attitude around sustainability. Let's have fun while saving the world.
Yeah.
It's a very serious topic, sustainability. I'm not under any illusion, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. But I find that the doomsday scenarios, the problems are so big, that negative narrative just slows us down and it puts people off and they just go back to their ways and aren't inspired to take some of these small actions and make the switch on things.
Yeah.
So
Can you give us an example? So of so who's the sort of your customers for
yep.
for Impactr?
No customers yet, just community that we're focusing on. So an example would be like when I said shift the world spending. So
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize it, but their money is super powerful. And the money that people that have money, I'm talking about. So initially, like, let's say the more affluent sections of our society. So where you pay your electricity bill or your energy bill, where you have your savings, in which bank, where is your superannuation, your pension money, your money sitting in those places, which insurance company do you use? Where your money sits is actually being in turn invested in either good or bad, to be blunt about it. They're either going into fossil fuels or they're not. And a lot of people don't realize that their money is actually going into some of the things that their values are against, or their personal desires. They want to change some of these things, but they're actually contributing to it without realizing. So, yeah, part of that shifting the world's spending, it's really to help people move as one of the things they can do is, switch where their money, their hard-earned dollars are being placed, and making that easy and making it trusted, and just connecting everyday people with these trusted brands, trusted companies, trusted places to put their resources into, to create to steer things away from where that money is currently flowing to.
Yeah. And so how would that work then? So you said you're building a community at the moment. So say I'm a brand, a company that manufactures food goods, and we help do a whole lot of social impact work, and we're 100% renewable sourced. I mean, how does Impactr fit into my world?
Yep, sure. So we've started what we call an affiliate community. So for companies or organizations, like you just mentioned, we have a join up, sign up process. And then we also connect with our expert community, or our community of people who have knowledge in various aspects in sustainability. And then we are working on ways to understand, because of course sustainability is not a black and white definition, and that needle is continuously moving and evolving. So it's really about how genuine is the company, how authentic. It's really trying to put all the measures in place to truly have sustainability at the core. And then we want to promote these companies. So we create sort of a directory, and later in the year we're having an app which is really focused on, giving that entry point to the everyday person in a fun and simple way to connect with these organizations and either become customers or support their campaigns. Yeah.
Yeah. And okay, so you're connecting, I guess, a community of consumers that want to put their money into organizations that are making the world a better place, as opposed to making the world a worse place.
Effectively.
So then how do you guys keep the lights on? What's your business model? So you need resources, you need finances, you need money to actually keep delivering your impact. How does that business model work?
Yeah. So depending on the business model of the affiliate companies, we will work collaboratively with them. If we bring leads, we bring customers to them and help them grow, then it's a win-win. So we'll have a model in there of a shared, Impactr will take a small percentage of bringing customers and supporting their growth. So to help our growth, and in turn, get more and more community in there and help with that exponential growth of these sustainable organizations.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you almost become like the Airbnb of sustainable business. So you're connecting the consumers with the suppliers.
I haven't thought about it that way, but sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I might use that.
Yeah. All right. So let's go back and so that's where Impactr is today, I guess.
Yeah.
But what I'm really interested in is going back in time to before Impactr existed. And I really want to hear about the origin story. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Where were you, and where did the idea for Impactr even come from in the first place? So what was the problem that you saw that you thought needed to be resolved?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can start with the problem that we're solving, and then I can wind back, and it depends how far back you want to go, because there's been a number of key sort of pivotal moments that have led me to where I am and where we are. But in terms of that problem we want to solve, first and foremost, it's about, and we use a person we know, Sean. So he's 20 years old, digital native, loves social media, and he's becoming a sort of a green, sustainable micro influencer. He really cares about engaging with sustainable brands. But he's not, protesting, striking. These things are not really for him, even though he cares deeply about the climate. But he's becoming increasingly frustrated. The adult pressures are coming. He wants to hold on to his values, and he's just not seeing that enough movement is happening around these areas that he cares about. So Impactr is really that. And Sean's not alone, by the way. There's millions of Seans in this same boat, and they're looking for that gratification, visibility that change is coming. So we're working on a platform that will help Sean effectively. So that's where we are. That's where we are now. But winding back, I guess there was really these 3 pivotal moments that led to this. So one was One Young World. So realizing that the keys are in the youth. The next was the first.
Well, tell me about that. What was it? What was it about that event that really sparked this in you?
So, I worked in wind energy for 11 years, started in 2008, and I was very, focused on the climate agenda because of the vision that the CEO at the time when I started had created wind on par with oil and gas. At that time it was kind of a bit crazy, but I was like, oh, that's awesome. Cool, we could do that. And, 7 years later or so, we were pretty much there. So I was very focused on that, but towards the last few years, it became, post GFC, and it was all starting to become very financially driven. And we kind of lost that magic around, hey, what are we actually doing here? We're building renewable energy. It became very much about, cost, benefit, the head count, stock price. And I was sort of very focused on that and just in this kind of businessman tunnel mindset there. And I went to I was invited to this youth forum as being part of a talent program. And, I was like, oh, I had this attitude, right? It was, I'm too busy for this. But I got there and it was 3 days. And in the airport on arrival, it was in Colombia, in Bogota. There's all these young people that are all dancing at the arrivals, dressed in traditional dress. And I was like, oh, wow, this is okay. And then it was 3 days of storytelling from people between the age of 18 and 30 from all 190 plus countries in the world, 2,000 people in a room. And it was absolutely earth-shattering for me. Stories of adversity, horror, but then resilience, invention, possibility, like rising above and overcoming these atrocities and these difficulties to move forward. And it was like, by the end of it, I was literally like feeling sick. I remember the closing ceremony and I was so overwhelmed that I was like, I think I'm going to be sick. And I went back to the office a few days later and nothing was the same. It was like my world had been turned upside down. I couldn't recognize everything around me in this sort of sterile office environment, which was quite negative. It had sort of to. So that was hugely shifting for me. And I there were 18-year-olds there. I was 34 at the time. I would have walked over hot coals for those people on the spot. And then I found myself missing that when I went back to my work. So that was very much a first shift.
Yeah. Can you remember a particular story from that event that really stands out?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there were people, there's so many flooding through my mind. A young man, sorry, but this is really awful. He was from Rwanda and he'd seen his parents eaten by, I'm not even going to say it. So, but he had then worked on a youth movement to, overcome this genocide and like work with people and get them out of the trauma. And like most of these young people had created organizations that were bringing other people forward, impacting their communities. And then there were a young guy who had invented a plug for what could have prevented the big BP oil spill. He was 17 when he came up with this.
Wow.
A young man who was in the Forbes top 30 talking about battery storage before it was really the thing that it is today. And I was like, it was the whole spectrum of sustainability was also opened up to me as well. It's not just about climate. There's the whole spectrum around equality and representation and a whole multitude of aspects. Yeah. So very, very, very moving and transformative for me.
Yeah.
Opened my eyes. They were shut before.
Yeah. Yeah, and those sorts of moments, you can't unlearn some of that once you get that knowledge in your head, and
Don't
ignore it.
unsee that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
So then, you've had this life altering
Yeah.
moment. Where did Impactr then come into the story?
Two more moments. My first Women in Energy conference and getting fired. So yeah, I was invited to this Women in Energy conference, and it was another aha moment for me. I developed unconscious bias. I've done a lot of research into this ever since this moment, but I again went to that meeting with an attitude problem, like, oh, okay, a Women in Energy conference. Like, what's this about? This is a few years ago, but not that long ago, really, in reality. And I was completely knocked off my seat. 25 women in a room. We were in a waste to energy plant. 2 engineers came in, started presenting the plant, and the inquisitiveness, the questions, the content, the substance, the intensity, the discussion. Oh, it was so enriching. I was completely blown away. And I went back to the office. That was completely missing. I joined a teleconference, a video conference with 20 men, and I thought, shit. I've been the only, what's going on here? I've been the only woman in this room for years. So those two things really kind of set me on a course to try to bring what was missing into the workplace effectively, and into our strategy, and just really trying to advance and broaden the perspectives. And it just didn't gel. I was getting more and more frustrated, speaking up, becoming empowered, and not just kind of towing the line. And eventually I was made redundant in my job, which was pretty shattering, because I was so committed to wind and renewable energy at the time. But in hindsight, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I we weren't moving the agenda fast enough to what we could be doing. So I was sort of set free from that, so to speak, and looking at how to bring in the youth and the women's agenda, and looking at gender equality and all this underrepresentation of underrepresented groups. Like, all we need is to have these people at the table, part of the decisions that are shaping our world, and we would have a different world. So that's really where Impactr first started. I like, how am I going to empower these people? What can I do instead of doing another green energy project? Why don't I try to unlock this situation that we have? And I started to look for a company that might fit those values. But that was a very short-lived exercise. I only looked for a job for a matter of weeks until I realized this just isn't for me. I'm not going to another corporate, which is more of the same. And a researcher made a presentation about how women do bring broader sustainable development considerations into their actions, into their decision making. And after that meeting, I just realized, after that presentation, it was like, okay, if I can't find a company that values this, the place I want to work, I'm going to create it. That's it. And then from that, I felt adrenaline in my arms, and it has never gone away, and I haven't stopped since. And that was in October 2018.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, actually, just on that bit of research too. So we've seen similar research, because we do basically exclusively in the sustainability area. Yeah, and the more women you have we do a lot of workshop and ideation type stuff. Yep. The more women you have in the room, the better the decisions that come out of the workshop.
Yep.
And there's a stack of research that supports it, just because you get that diversity of thought, and people see from different perspectives, and it goes across age and youth and everything. But the research is pretty clear on the more women you have in the room, the better the decision making that comes out.
Absolutely. Yep, it's crystal clear.
Yeah.
Not everybody's looking at it though, unfortunately.
Exactly. Yeah. And when we tell people that, I've been in a lot of meetings, and they've said, okay, we've got all these people coming to this workshop. Is there any problem? I said, and I'll say, there's a little bit too much testosterone in this list you've just given me. And they look at me like I'm crazy, and the evidence is there. So anyway, so once
behind the science, so to speak.
Exactly, yeah. And it is science, right? There is evidence that shows that that's the case. So if you believe in climate change, then you should believe in the science as well.
Indeed.
So once you got this, this adrenaline. You come up with this idea that, well, if I can't find what I want, I'm just going to make it.
Yeah.
What was the very first thing that you did? What was the very next step? Like, how did you go from I'm going to do this to, oh shit, now I actually have to do it?
Well, I thought, what are the problems that women are facing in advancing? And I looked very quickly at my last few weeks of experience in putting a CV together, trying to explain what I was capable of instead of describing, roles I'd done 10 years ago, or my aerospace engineering degree, which was sort of becoming an antique by that point. And I thought, I was on LinkedIn, trying to shape my profile there. And I was like, why don't I just make a digital platform that can unlock or remove some of these barriers that women face in the job process and in their promotion processes, and just help with profile building. So it was kind of like, all right, LinkedIn for women, but why don't I try to make that? And then just started ideating different concepts, and just really started to look into the digital space as being that powerful tool for mobilizing and getting a big reach. That's the power of social media and the digital space, is that connectivity and that ability to kind of just penetrate and get a really wide mobilization if you get it right. So that's what I've been focusing on is the digital space for empowerment, but also looking at, I guess, behavioral aspects of that and what makes people do what they do using digital technologies. And so since then, that's really been forming this platform that we continue to work on today.
Yeah. And can you remember the first person you told about your idea and what they thought?
The first person was my partner. Yeah. She actually, she was happy for me that I'm happy. She also is kind of a traditional person, I guess, grew up did a business degree and has a business focused mindset. So entrepreneurship is not really for her, I guess. Yeah. And then at the time, one of my best friends, after I'd sort of been thinking about this for a while, I gave her a call, and she was in a similar space in her life, had been going through some similar experiences. So we, got together and just started ideating and took it from there.
Yeah. And what about your first community members? So you started building this community. So I assume you started recruiting people somewhere. Yeah. Tell me about how that came about.
Yeah, I was building organizations, gathering talent, recruiting. Like, this was kind of what I'd been doing in my last few years at my previous job. So, okay, I'm building a company, I need to recruit talent. So I kind of was behaving like I already have a corporation before I actually had one. So, I put up jobs on the job sites, of course, because we're still a startup. They were voluntary basis, and some roles could end up into the founding team structure. And the amount of people that were interested, like, I basically set up an office in my apartment, and every person that came through the door was so amped about sustainability. They'd faced similar issues. They totally got it. And we worked with dozens and dozens of people over the course of last year. And that was kind of the catalyst for growing the fairly large community that we have today. So many people have chipped in and been a part, like literally in the office on the whiteboards, or my apartment rather. And it's all just grown from there. Like, I'll give you an example. I put a job for a financial analyst, a business analyst, and a sustainability analyst, 3 jobs at the same time, sort of in internship sort of related roles. And within a week, I think we had 50 applicants on the sustainability analyst and maybe 7-ish on the other 2. This is in Denmark. So, of course, especially with the younger generation there, they've got a lot of like degrees and things in sustainability. But like, that was just out of this world. I'm like, what? Look at all these people that want to chip in. So we actually created an Impactathon. So like kind of like an ongoing hackathon where all these people who wanted to be involved in doing some sustainability analysis could chip in, and we created some teams and sort of ran this ongoing hackathon, which was really amazing. And so we've got these deeply committed and people that have been engaged along the way. And then that I guess authenticity is sort of carried through into our brand, is attracting people all over the world.
Yeah, and so when did it morph from, so you're building this community and people who see the problem that you're trying to solve? Yeah. When did it morph into the Impactr you described earlier that is now trying to connect consumer spending with businesses that are doing good? Where did that transformation happen along the way?
Yeah, so we've been ideating a lot along the way, but it's ultimately in the impact that we want to create. Like, we talked a lot about greenwashing and corporates that aren't really moving the needle, and at the same time we're we're in this community, in this ecosystem of startups and smaller medium enterprises that are genuinely like it's already baked into their business model that they will make impactful outcomes. So it was just really through engaging with that community that we realized there's an unfair playing field here, particularly on the big social media platforms where it's pay to play, right? You need to have a big marketing budget to be able to rise to the top. And that's not the case for many of these more genuine startups and smaller companies who are trying to get that reach and trying to get to mainstream adoption, but they're being knocked out of the way by the bigger marketing budgets of other companies, literally. So that was kind of this okay, how can we level that playing field, and how can our platform be the one that is more regulated on a sustainability criteria basis, rather than, okay, you just pay and you get the premium advertising spot. We could still have a paid setup, but first and foremost, it's about the sustainable criteria.
And you got it sounds like for a business who's using Impactr, you've got a highly qualified consumer base effectively. So you don't need to like spread your message. We were talking earlier around the language of sustainability. You don't have to split your language to hit an audience that's not necessarily into sustainability, but you still want to capture that market. You've actually got a committed sustainable, so your messaging can be right on point all the time.
Exactly. The early adopter community is there. The conscious, so to speak, community is there. All the surveys, all the data shows that people are willing, particularly more skewed to the younger generation, to change their lifestyles, to be to have less negative impact on the planet and in the various aspects of sustainability. But in spite of that super high majority in the consciousness, the action or that conversion is not entirely there. That's still at a much lower number. So there's that gap of people want to do things, but limited, constrained, don't know where to start, don't know what to trust, still going about their ways. So it's in that space that we're trying to bring enablement. Yep.
Yeah, cool. So of course, when you start a new enterprise to save the world, nothing ever goes wrong, right? So tell me about something that went wrong in that. When you think back on it, you really cringe that I can't believe I did that when you're trying to get Impactr up and going.
I don't have any cringe around Impactr. My cringes are prior to Impactr. And I will mention some of those, like when you kind of grow up in a company, like you get this, you're young, you're looking for what to follow, you're believing in something. And I had this kind of blind loyalty, and I didn't have a broad, like diverse enough sort of experience I was tolerating discrimination. I wasn't speaking up, So as a young person, like I kind of look back and I'm like, why did I do that for so long? And I regret not having enough kind of genuine mentors to help me kind of move around and not have those aha moments too late, so to speak. I mean, it's not too late, but I would like to have had them much earlier, I could have gone with it earlier. Anyway, but in terms of Impactr, no cringe moments, but, as a startup, look, it is hard. The reality of the world is, it's financially driven, and people need to have an income. They need to put food on the table. So when you have founders and people working on it, like for a while, we're, burning our own runways, spending our savings, and still not quite, getting there. So that's been the hardest thing. Yeah. And again, like, me trying to create that big corporation from day one, but not having the reality of the funding or the revenue streams from that early stage, that's been really difficult. But, I've tried to put this ideal scenario of a value-driven company that's inclusive, it's open, it's fair, it's equal from day one. And that was a very open year I had last year around that, which was so many people involved and hackathons. But now it's three of us as three core founders. We still have our community around us, but the three of us are getting on with the job right now. Like, we've really scaled down, and we need to get to the next stage around the product, and then come back to building this ideal corporation that we set out to do in the beginning.
Yeah. So, the mission's really important, right? And having that vision is really important, but it's not enough on its own. I think understanding your business model, and so because we do a lot of work with people who are sort of in this space where they're trying to launch an idea or create a new idea, and they almost feel like asking for money is a it's a cop out. It's not a cop out. They're going back to the dark side of the force. So all these corporations are just driven by money, and if I ask for someone to give me some money, I'm just being like them again. But you can't deliver the impact without resources.
Exactly.
And whether you like it or not, financial resources are a necessity for every impact business that's out there, not regardless of the mission.
Yep, I completely agree. And we are unapologetic for not being a not-for-profit, because we know in our core we are impact driven, and that is our mission. But we do need those, and we will get as many financial resources as we possibly can to make that impact. Coming back to what I first was saying in the beginning, money is powerful. That's the reality of where we are today. If I had $1 billion, I would use it on this, and I would sleep at night knowing that we are trying to make the world a better place, and not just building a business to generate more money, get money to build more money. That's not the point. Otherwise, I just go back to what I was doing before.
Yes. Yeah. But generating the financial capital allows you to deliver on the impact. So, which is why the mission becomes so important, because then all your decisions around should we pursue this financial opportunity is driven by, does that help us achieve the impact or not?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about how you see, now we've been sort of talking about the past. Let's look into the future. Where do you see impact in the future? What's the vision at the moment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, supporting this groundswell, there's this early adopter conscious people who want to take action and make changes, but are struggling to do so. So yeah, Impactr really is helping people on a daily basis with these small actions that may seem insignificant, but added up, make a big impact. So yeah, it's really, we focus on small micro actions. So over the course of the next years, through our digital platform, we want to be enabling, millions of these tiny actions that are just everyday people doing everyday things, but create a larger change at business level and an industry and yeah. So I'll give you an example of that. We're running a campaign that we'll launch soon called Flick the Switch. And it's simply a matter of changing, if you can afford it, because there is a slight extra cost, which is coming down, but green power, look in Australia, there's sort of 10 million accounts, people paying electricity bills or energy bills, and they just don't realise that money is going to a fossil fuel portfolio. And there are a lot of people that can and would switch to a green power solution if they knew, we've been doing some surveys on this. So this campaign is really just to get people to flick the switch. And it emerged around the bush, when the bushfires were occurring around Christmas, and I was looking into it and I'm like, Dad, what power company are you with? I'm not going to mention it now, but, looking at it, I'm like, oh man, we need to change. Like, let's flick the switch. We took a couple of minutes, and it was there I realized that you can get a lot of people in a matter of minutes flicking the switch to a green power option or service, or changing their provider entirely. And there's so much potential there in people, and no customers, no company. So, customers have a lot of power here on the energy space. So that's one of our initial focuses. So, in terms of a vision, millions of people, thousands of people flicking the switch, just changing, and that adding up to one hell of an impact, and, creating that extra demand for 100% renewable.
I could imagine that would terrify some sales or execs in some of these companies that are fossil fuel based. I actually think that's a really cool idea. I mean, if you could get a whole big bunch of consumers changing their retail energy contracts to a renewable source within like a 1 hour window, like all of a sudden 40,000 customers have just switched.
It's like the big Earth hour, right? Turn off the power for an hour. Well, don't even spend an hour. Just spend 5 minutes switching to green power or switching to provider.
Jump online, show them how to go find the comparison sites, how to pick one, how to click this, and you're done.
There were 300,000 climate strikers in one of the bigger ones late last year. They've got parents, they've got neighbours, they've got uncles. They can switch 1 million people if they switch 3 each. So it's like, this is possible, and this is what we're working towards. And it's not to terrify, company execs. You have an opportunity to be part of this or not. Green is winning. So get on the train, or you're going to be left behind. It's really that simple. Like, the opportunity is right there in front of you to make the move. You're just not doing it. So,
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes about these impact startups is, or even just startups in general, with big companies is, these small startups aren't coming to disrupt your business model. You're just collateral damage of not being on the right trend. And green power is the same
Yeah.
thing, right? All these green companies aren't trying to disrupt the energy industry. The energy industry is just collateral damage for not keeping up with the needs of consumers and all the environment.
Yeah, I try not to think in to use the word disrupt or break, or it's too negative. But it's a bit like what I said before. The 5 whys, and you keep getting a no, and then I go around. Like it's about what's in the way, and there is deliberate things being put in the way. So we'll either go around it, or it will have to be broken, because we need the outcome that's behind that wall that's being put up. These incumbents are deliberately withholding, and we're talking about energy now, but this new energy reality, they're turning it into an endless transition when in fact it could be carbon zero by next Wednesday. Give us the chance.
Yeah. So if there was someone listening out there right now that has been inspired by hearing your story, or they've had this idea ticking around, or they're working for a company and they're feeling a bit disillusioned, what's one piece of advice you give to someone like that?
Yeah, if you're feeling disillusioned, change your situation. Don't push uphill for too long, or try to change the people around you. There's 8 billion people in the world. Many of them think differently. So if you can, change your situation. Don't be frustrated. There's many amazing organizations, groups, companies that are forming. Yeah, get involved, and don't be held back by negativity that's around you.
Yeah, cool. And if people wanted to learn more about Impactr or to get in touch, what's the best way for them to connect?
www.impactr.world. And Impactr doesn't have an E at the end, so just check the spelling there.
So IMPACTR.
We're humans. We're super open. We've got a newsletter series now where we keep people up to date and how they can get involved. So, jump in.
Right. And you're looking for consumers and companies that those early adopters that are trying to do good things in the world. You're looking for both.
Yeah, I've never liked the word consumer, I have to say. It just sort of categorizes people in a way, and plus we have more of a buy less, buy better kind of mindset. Consumerism is really one of the problems. So it's everyday people, everyone who maybe is either casually interested or wants to know more, or we've got the hardcore sustainability pioneers are all there with us. So we're trying to be more approachable for the everyday person who, we don't want to be too intimidating, right? A lot of people I don't understand sustainability. I don't understand climate change. It's all too much for me. So we're being more approachable in that sense. So everyday people, and connecting those with the trusted organizations they can engage with.
So good people and good businesses.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I'm a good business podcast.
That's all right. So what would you like people to do after they've heard your story?
Flick the switch. Take this. One action you can do, just go and have a look at your electricity plan, switch to green power today. We'll actually have a website soon that can help you with that will be, trusted and sort of verified. If you're already on a green power plan, then help someone else. If you're a student, you don't pay an electricity bill, but your parents do, help them switch. So flick the switch. Let's get as many people to do that as possible. That will make a big dent.
Awesome. Here. All right. So let's wrap up with what we call our Mad Minute, which is meant to be 5 rapid fire questions in 60 seconds. So let's go. So what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Print a business card with only my name on it and nothing else. Johannah Maher.
What's the driver behind that advice?
I was struggling.
What's the rationale?
Well, after I was fired, I was struggling I'd been introducing myself on behalf of the company I represented for 10 years, and now I'm going to these conferences. Who am I? And this coach I had at the time, which she was amazing. She just said, Johannah Maher, you are Johannah Maher, put that on your business card and hand it to people. And that was the most empowering thing that's ever happened to me. It was amazing. So, yeah.
Great one. I like that one. All right. So what's your favorite business book?
I'm hoping it's going to be How to Save the World by Katie Patrick once it gets delivered. There's some delays due to COVID.
Yeah, I've seen her on LinkedIn talking about it. So,
yeah.
So,
creativity.
So you pre-ordered, have you? It's on its way?
Yep.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to get a copy as well. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A warrior.
A warrior?
Yeah.
Really?
I used to draw swords and different. That was kind of medieval, but then there was superpowers. I played Dungeons and Dragons with my older cousins and family friends. So yeah, that was sort of formative, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's where the fighting spirit comes from, eh?
I think so.
Yeah. What's your favourite quote?
You're never too young to lead, and you're never too old to learn. And that was said by the late Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General, at One Young World in 2017.
Nice. And if you could go back in time and give your 20-year-old self some advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I guess 17 years ago is not a relevant context today, but I would give a 20-year-old me today this advice. Don't get stuck in the hamster wheel doing time for someone else's gain or greed. And you are more creative, more powerful than ever. So use it to help us old ones with what to do. Help us flick the switch.
Flick the switch. And you reckon you would have done the 5 whys on yourself?
Ooh, yeah. Do the 5
whys. Why should I do that? Why should I do that?
I've actually, someone did that to me about Impactr. Why are you doing Impactr? Why? But why? But why? But why? And when you get down to it, well, I need to help people. We need to help sustainable brands. We need equality. Why? We need to fix the climate. Why? You can get down to the bottom there. And the word, the most fundamental thing was because it's humanity. There really is no other way to, at the bottom of all the whys, that is the word Ubuntu in South African, humanity.
Yeah, it's one the 5 whys is like one of the most powerful techniques. We use it all the time when people go, I want to start this business and we want to sell this. Well, why do you want to do that? I just go, and you eventually get to the guts of it. Well, because I think it's the right thing to do, and I believe in it, and we know that you've got this, whatever it is. And that's the reason you're doing it, and you're not doing it because they usually start off on make money and sell stuff or become a billionaire. Actually, well, why do you want to do that? And why do you want to do that? And when you actually get to the bottom, actually, it's not becoming a billionaire. It's not what they want. It's actually some other driver that's underpinning it. And then that's what you need to tell people about, because that's why people will buy your product, because they buy what you do, not what you sell. So yeah. So yes. Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. That's I love the story. I can't wait to see where you guys go in the future. And yeah, so everyone out listening, make sure you go and check out Impactr's website and definitely flick the switch. So thanks for joining us on the Good Business Podcast.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Make sure you go and check out Impactr's website, which is at Impactr, Impactr.world. Now, while we're on the topic of websites, if you haven't checked out the great resources available on our website, which include free downloadable worksheets and guides to help you build your own impact business, then head over to www.bluetribe.co/podcast. If you like today's episode, make sure you click that like and subscribe button, and also tell a friend about the podcast so they can get some inspiration from great businesses doing great things. Coming up in the next episode.
Alcohol is great at extracting flavors out of things. The process of making alcohol produces a whole heap of chemicals that add complexity and flavor and body and mouthfeel. And so it's actually really tricky to create something without using alcohol in the process or using alcohol as the starting point. And so that's where the science background has come in for me, between the chemistry and then the plant biology, in terms of really having that focus on flavors coming from plants.
In the next episode, this impact entrepreneur is using her science skills to reinvent methods used in traditional alcohol production, creating innovative zero-proof craft cocktails. Well, that's it for another episode of the Good Business Podcast. I'm James McGregor. Until next time.